There it is.
All right.
We're rolling, gentlemen.
Well, hello and welcome to the Word Lover
No,
Podcast.
James, you can't just go off the cuff. We have to warm up a little bit.
Me.
Fa, sol, la, ti, da. Hello and welcome.
I think he meant stretches.
Oh,
Do some burpees real quick.
if I stretch too much, I may be letting out some gas you may not want to be experiencing.
Oh, my goodness. What the...
All right, now? Hello and welcome to the Word Lover Podcast.
This guy's all business.
I'm your host, James Beasley, here with Josh and Jeff.
Josh and Jeff.
Josh
And Jeff. And we are here to eventually get into discussing the rest of Proverbs chapter 16.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Or hear it, one or the other.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But as we get warmed up to get into this wonderful passage, how has y'all's week been? I could tell you mine is fixing to become very scary.
It's good.
It's good.
I feel like
it's good.
I feel like it's kind of too hot. The global warming is really getting to me.
Well, that's what happens in the
Just your
summertime.
house.
Is it always this hot?
Yes, it's always
And
hot.
every summer I always feel like
Just
it's
getting
hotter.
old.
Is that see? The heat warning right there.
The heat.
That's an Amber Alert. They're looking for me.
I can't believe it blows our minds that it is hot in summer. I mean, it's just amazing.
No, it's just that's how it feels. Like as I'm melting.
Man, when I was farming like during high school, right out of high school, it got up to 110, 115 when I was out there hauling hay.
It's about that. It's got to be that with the heat index. I'm sure it's 110, 115.
It's awesome.
Is this a segue? Is this a segue? What?
Can you read it, Jeff?
I can't even read that.
One of the articles that was shared.
Okay, yes, that's about that.
Is it?
I see that.
Jeff, let me ask you this: is it one that James shared?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it was. This is from the Washington Post. It says, one of America's top climate scientists is an evangelical Christian. She's on a mission to persuade skeptics.
Oh my!
Did you read the article? Partly.
Nobody.
Did you look at it?
I saw it once.
I read through it. It was actually quite interesting how she integrated the her deep faith in Christianity and
Science?
global warming and climate change.
So, do you believe it's happening?
No, well, I believe the climate changes every day, and it's going to continue to change until the Lord returns. But
When He raptures us away.
in a degree,
I would say that humans have done an amazing job of destroying what we've been blessed with. So
more ways than one.
if we're affecting the climate, I can't imagine why that's a surprise. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, my son was asking me today, I don't even know what made him ask, but he said, this is my youngest son who's almost 10. He says, Daddy, what's acid rain? And I'm like, okay, whatever.
What?
So we start talking about acid rain and, whatever. But, I mean, that's just the world we live in. We are so focused on just live for now and just see what happens, and maybe 100 years from now it'll blow up in our face. But like fracking, for example, how does that make sense to anybody? Just pump all this chemical filled water into the ground, blow out all the natural gas or whatever, and it's it'll trap itself down there. I'm like, and now people are drinking flammable water, and there's all these mini earthquakes where no earthquakes should be found. I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, you got to balance the need for energy with, a little bit of common sense too.
Yeah, I would agree with that when it comes to the fracking part. I don't know that much about the fracking.
Do you just like to say fracking?
Well, there's fracking and there's frickin'.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No, the frickin' fracking.
Mm-hmm.
Keep on going. We might be saying something we don't
I know,
want
right?
to.
Well, we're supposed to be good stewards. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the whole idea.
And I think we're failing miserably at that.
And to a degree, but the
How
actual
much-
climate change thing. I mean, I don't necessarily agree that everything that what they say that we're doing to it is actually man-made or caused. I think some of it's just natural.
So, would this article call you ignorant for thinking that way?
Article?
Is that
No, that article
scientists-
was actually very well written. portrayed her what she was trying to do in a very good light. It did not come across as condescending or anything like that to the other side. I actually,
But you
was
know what I'm
impressed
talking
with the
about. Like
article.
you have people that say that if you don't conclude that we're all going to die in 50 years, that you're ignorant.
I would have to go into more of just what like her debates or her speeches or whatever to actually see if I could get that kind of a vibe or not. But from the article itself, no, I didn't get that. But
I actually didn't have a chance to read it because there was 50 articles that were sent.
it was precisely 50.
Well,
You must be getting
close
them
to
from
it.
other sources than Jeff and myself.
I was out in the heat all day. Pay me no
So
mind.
you were seeing like 10 with every one we sent.
Probably.
But I do believe in the ultimate global warming because Second Peter tells us that all of the elements are going to be consumed by fire, and everything's going to melt away. So it's going to get so extremely hot that nothing's going to be able to withstand it unless you're in Christ.
And then the giant scorpion monsters.
Yeah, I think that'll be.
Doesn't it say
the
something?
scorpion, whatever the scorpion things that come out of the abyss.
Right.
That's going to be
I
after.
thought you were being facetious.
I thought I was too.
No, but they do. They have tails like scorpions, and
I
they
remember
have
that.
hair like lions and all that.
Boils,
And,
illness.
But that would
blood to
technically
drink
be
instead of
before
water.
the melting away of everything.
But we're going to be raptured before that.
Before the melting away.
Before any of it takes place.
Well, you can go on and believe
There's
that once it happens.
premillennialism and postmillennialism.
And mid-trib and post-trib and
Yeah.
all millennialism.
James doesn't think that there's a rapture.
I believe that there is a rapture, as in the sense that
Pre-trib.
all 16 to 1800 minds took what the word rapture meant, and that was an elation of the soul.
Did you say Mayans?
Minds.
Is this sacrilegious if I said, I would sometimes like there to be a crapture
Oh, crash.
where all the garbage would just be taken away in the blink of an eye? Like all the scary
Oh,
people that aren't
I
nice?
completely
Poof.
concur.
Well,
Yeah.
that's sort of what is alluded to in the parable of or like the weeds and the tares, because the tares are going to be removed and taken out, and it's the wheat that's left. So it's sort of
When
like
I
the
say
same
that
thing.
jokingly, because I know, how heartbreaking that's going to be, to be serious, like where, I'm basically joking about like billions of people dying and going to hell. But in the here and now, boy, it's hard not to just be like, man, God, if you could just like, poof, make some of these goofballs get out of here.
Make it paradise now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's, I guess, me being spiritually lazy. But
Yes, but as Josh was quite often alluding to, I am, I guess you could say, post-tribulational,
I don't know that we
premillennial.
don't want to really go down this road because we're kind of short on time.
Yeah.
well, I'm
Yes.
going to switch it up real quick. We're going to get through these fast.
Very fast.
Are you guys going to Area 51? Yes or no?
I'd like to, but my schedule is booked up, and I don't have that kind of money.
You can't make time for them aliens?
I honestly, it's been in my peripheral, but I don't really know. Like, they're going to storm Area 51 and find out what's going on. Isn't that the idea?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's,
they're going to see them
Sounds like
aliens.
a really dumb idea.
I really think I'm just going to just wait this one out and see whatever hits the news afterwards.
Clearly, it started as a joke. However, it's just obviously is going to be one of those things where somebody's going to show up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
you
for
know
the
they
fun
will.
and
Because I think
grins and giggles.
the thing said it was like thousands of people
Yeah. I mean, now
going to
it's
attend, and
hundreds-
1,000 liking it.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of
Yeah.
them. Gee,
Hundreds of-
You're going to
I-
have somebody there.
I think at this point it's over 1 million people saying that they would like to, attend. Even if like 10% of those people show up, just the locals, you're gonna have
100,000
some
people.
But then when you get that many people together, I taught middle school. There's this mental
Chaos.
change that happens when you're around your friends. You start to do and say things that you would never do.
Oh, that's
Yep.
the
You
mob
get
mentality.
mentality.
you
it's
get
gonna
bold
happen.
and brave.
This is going to
and-
start out as just a silly little joke, and somebody's going to get hurt. And then what? Then you've got like this national, embarrassment at the very least, or, catastrophe. How many times in these protest riots or whatever, or parades, and one person
All it takes is one.
does one thing, and then it just devolves very quickly into who knows what.
How many wars we're waiting on somebody to start it? And it takes one gunshot to start get everybody killing each
I'll
other.
tell you what, man. So no, I wouldn't get anywhere near that. I don't like big groups. We went to see the fireworks in D.C. and it's kind of nerve wracking when you're shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of.
There's
thousands.
nowhere to go.
No.
If something does go off, you're kind of stuck.
Not a good place
Yep.
to be.
I mean-
So even though this is in the middle of nowhere, And even if they only get like what I think you can get within like 25 miles, I think, of the actual base.
I think it's 20,
before they
25
start
miles.
threatening to shoot. I don't want to be anywhere near it. Y'all knock yourselves out.
I don't think they'll use lethal force. I mean, tear gas and rubber bullets are going to dissuade some people from charging.
Can you
But if
imagine
you have
the
a
uproar?
mob, but if you have a mob of 100,000 people at least,
Tear gas.
I don't think tear gas and rubber bullets are going to dissuade
they-
them.
if you
Once they
remember-
realize they're not dying,
the government's smart enough to like kind of plan some of this stuff, and I think that they'll like mass produce
Trapdoors.
They'll figure out something. Yeah,
They've already
they-
got trapdoors.
do you think they're the ones that instigated it all?
it could be. I'm not that much of a conspiracy theorist.
It was an
but-
alien that made that original post.
It was it.
This is their trick to get rid of us all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine like how? I mean, it would just people would just go berserk if even one person got hurt. You
Yeah.
know, then the U.S. government, is evil, and it's going to be all Trump's fault for doing something. I don't know.
It's too late.
Or not,
for that.
or not doing something.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is way too late. It's already Trump's fault. Come
So
on. Man.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's the one that probably detained the aliens in the first place.
He is an alien. What are you talking about?
Did you see? Speaking of aliens, did you see? Was it in Paris, France, a week ago? A couple hundred illegal immigrants in Paris stormed a national monument,
I did
demanding
not see that.
attention and support from the government. I don't know. The video is kind of like gives you chills.
That's what's going to happen here if our borders keep getting overrun.
I tell you what, it's spooky stuff. I saved the clip of it somewhere, but yeah, somebody posted it, and I thought this clearly is like, is this something else? Is it, they posted it and they didn't realize what they were posting? It looks to be sincere, like, just a couple hundred, I think African, I don't know what nation in Africa, but just kind of descended upon one of these national monuments in Paris and demanding to be recognized.
And what kind of
saying something to the effect of like, Paris or France is for all of us. It's not for you. My thing is if America ran across the border to Canada and say Canada is ours too, that's an act of war.
That is an act of war.
what kind of
If
what-
South Korea went across the DMZ or whatever you call that thing,
yeah, there's going to be
the line,
some blood flying.
boy, you'd be, you know what I mean? But
What kind of retaliation did the government like? What did they do?
that's a good question.
Did that not part of the
It's
video?
probably mixed results of like, some were probably applauding them for being brave.
Right.
Others saying, this is ridiculous, but where are the real repercussions? Like, I mean, I'm all for taking care of the weak and the poor and there are sincere needs out there, but to just open the doors and just say, come on in
Where do you draw the line?
with no rules, with no nothing. I mean, like, good gracious.
Speaking of like gunfire and all that kind of stuff, what did you mean by texting me, does my wife have a gun?
Oh, I texted that.
He texted that.
What did you mean by
Because
texting?
he told me to walk in the door when I get here. Don't even knock, just come on in. I'm like, does your wife have a gun? I don't.
Oh, you're speaking that to him.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at this and
Because I don't want to just walk into somebody's house.
because y'all
and get
both come up as
shot.
Jay.
Well, you know what I did? Because both of you are JB.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's saying what? So I found a picture of you, Josh, on Facebook, cut it out, and stuck it on there. So now at least I've got a face to put with something. Otherwise, JB says this, JB says
That's
this.
what I'm going to have to do. I just have Jay.
It doesn't help me. one
Okay.
bit.
Okay, that's a
What
me
did,
question.
what did you? Is that an insult, James? Where you come from? Does your wife have a gun?
No, I just thought it was.
She needs
It was
one.
out of the blue because you just said, "Well, Jeff just walked in, and I'll be here," and it's like, "And you'll be here. You live here." But
I said that many times because
I
I know
know.
that it irritates you. I'm good.
it doesn't
at that.
irritate me. It just speeds me up.
If I say it enough, it will.
So when I
It
get
worked.
pulled over and I'm trying to rush here to be on time,
You cannot blame it on me.
I'm blaming it on
It
you.
has nothing to do with me.
Well,
You want to do another article?
Absolutely.
Hey, Jeff
I
has
had
got his
some of
foot on
yours
the
too.
gas today.
man,
I
here
like
we
it.
go. Christian Book. What does the CBD stand for?
Christian Book
CBD.
Distributors.
Distributors. There you go. The article reads: The other CBD, Christian Book Distributors, changes name after cannabis confusion. New York Times. My response to that was, this could be a little miracle. I'm sure for that company it's annoying to have to change their website, their web address. Or
I don't
name.
understand why they would change it in the first place.
I
though.
struggled with that, too.
That
My
My
struck
wife,
me.
I mentioned it to my wife. She's like, "Oh yeah, it drives me crazy because she's a homeschool, mom,
Right.
and she's always digging around their website, and she's like, every time I type it into Google, I get diverted over to cannabis this and cannabis that.
From a consumer perspective,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I'm thinking from like the guy answering the phone, "Hey, this is CBD." What?
Well, or the company is wasting man hours answering phone calls,
Right.
saying like, the article said something about, oh, wait, you want gummy what? Oh, no, wrong website.
Suckers.
But I'm looking at it like, surely this is getting somebody in connection with a Christian company that never would have reached out
you
to
want
them
that?
otherwise.
No, we don't sell that. But we can offer you something else that's
Well, you know what I
satisfying.
mean? Like,
Jesus will save you.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like cliche, but
Well, it's true though. Right?
somebody might accidentally just happen upon a website. Like that's how God works, I think, in the tiny little details.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how'd you meet your wife? Oh my goodness, you'd never, I was at this place and it just bumped into her and she caught my eye.
If you honestly go to and you actually pull up the Christian Book Distributors website, and you're looking for marijuana or whatever, it's not like you're going to be mistaken.
Well, by then you already know what you're. Yeah.
What site am I on? Oh no, I'm on the wrong site. Let me look for something else.
Right.
I don't understand the drasticness and the name changing there, because it's just. I don't know.
I don't think they were worried that they're confusing the customer. I think they were worried because it was just, imagine if somebody kept calling your house and saying, hey man, you hooked me up. I'm like, oh dude, you got the wrong number again.
You can only mess with them so much, right?
Yeah, right.
I understand that part. Yeah.
So, but I thought,
Like all the wrong calls, people.
it would be neat if if somebody called you up and said, listen, I know it's going to be inconvenient, it's going to cost you some money, but would you be willing to change your company's web address and all the marketing materials and what have you, if it could save one life? And you're like, oh man, well if you put it like that, I guess I gotta say yes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if even one person somehow, through some miraculous chain of events, because of this confusion, gets exposed to something that plants a seed or leads to turning their life over to Jesus, I'm like, hey man,
would they have to sell the royalty, like to sell the rights to their name? Like CBD and the website and all that. And if so,
I think that they
would
kept
they be
the
aiding and
website,
abetting
but
somebody
they
else's addiction?
They changed the title of the store itself.
Yeah, now it's like christianbook.com or something like that.
I know that's been in the making though, because it's been a while.
Oh, is
But
it already that?
if it was me, what I would do is say, "Yeah, you wanted your gummies? Give me your credit card number and send them a Bible." You get the money, they get a Bible, everybody's happy.
Only for a
Praise the
short
Lord.
time. You better put some gummies in there.
They're like licking they're licking the pages and like, I don't know.
The
This doesn't-
snozberries taste like snozberries.
We'll make a Bible out of gummies.
See, there you go.
That'd be something.
But
that was an interesting one. I just don't.
When
I think I'd have left it alone. But.
I wanted to get in the topic of drugs and because the needle's tipping to it being legal, right? So how does
Especially that's
marijuana?
That's going to be over all 50 states soon.
So then if you take out Romans 13, 1 through 5 about following the law of the land, what do you think about it?
Following the law of the land.
Do we have time, Jeff? Jeff,
I think we need to keep going through our articles.
Okay, never mind.
Oh,
But that's a good point to be taken up on. We might even pick that up on the next one, because that is something. Because as prominent as that is getting,
Well, there's
that
states that's
does
legal
break.
already.
Yeah, that brings up a whole irony in itself. How a state's legalizing something that the federal government has as illegal.
Well, it happens all the time.
I know it's just something prominent out there, but it's like, oh yeah, that's legal in Colorado, but but the federal government come in.
You're from Colorado, aren't you?
I am from Colorado.
Yeah, your eyes are a little bloodshot. What are you giggling
I didn't
for?
just come from Colorado.
You got here mighty quick, James.
I was born, but not yesterday. What is it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I
from
was
Colorado.
born in the night, but it wasn't last night.
Yeah, there you go. I'm from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Might have fell off the pumpkin wagon, but it wasn't last night.
I don't have pumpkins in Colorado.
Yes, you do.
Pumpkin wagon.
You got pumpkins everywhere.
That sounds like some kind of like comment you make about a person.
All right, where we at,
wagon.
Jeff?
Oh,
keep us
let's
on
keep
course
going. What's
here.
the next
All right.
article you got?
I posted the one that disturbed me the most today was
About the
that
movie?
that stinking movie.
Yeah.
My thing, the movie's called Good Boys.
Which could be slightly
Seth
misleading.
Rogen. Well, I did
The whole
trying to pull
thing
up some
seemed misleading.
parent reviews of
It's a-
parental stuff, and then I was getting other movies, and I'm like, the headlines were like promoting it like a family friendly. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh, this is the wrong movie. Okay, but it's just like, I get it. There's raunchy stuff out there that's rated R, but it's for adults, and I don't watch it. I wouldn't recommend you watch it. It makes me kind of sad that people find pleasure in watching just really just
Filthy.
foul stuff.
Right.
But man, when it is so clearly marketed to kids, if this is starring in the trailer, it says, we're fifth graders, or are we sixth graders or fifth graders, whatever. You're kids. It's a rated R movie. Shelley looked it up on IMDb, and it said that it's the first rated R movie that said specifically something about tweens. The main characters are tweens. It's the first time a rated R movie has been described in that way.
It's amazing that they actually even do that. When to even watch or purchase a rated R movie, you're supposed to be 18.
Well, then did I show you? I don't know if I shared this one. But
I saw that. They wouldn't let the kids even watch the trailer.
Yeah,
it
said that. Yeah, I seen that.
and that was all like tongue in cheek. But
they did an interview as well, and I wasn't able to read that part.
The unedited trailer, like there was like the general audience trailer where everything's bleeped out. Well, then they have this, the unedited trailer, and Seth Rogen's sitting at a table, and he's got the three guys, the kids. And he's like, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, but I can't show you the trailer because it's it's rated R." And the kids start saying, "Well, that's bleeping stupid, effing stupid." And he's like, "You know what? That's Hollywood. They're effing stupid." And then they end up, playing the trailer or whatever. And they're just they're making light of the fact that kids are. Do you hear what you're saying? You're happily admitting that this movie is too raunchy for a child to watch, and yet it's made with nothing but children. If I was a middle school student, clearly I'm going to want to watch this movie because it's my peers that are in it.
Exactly.
Right.
That's who they're marketing it to.
Oh my gosh. And to watch the trailer, the stuff they said, the stuff they do is just absolutely, it's just flat out filth. But when you pull up, like if you do a Google search for reviews of this movie, it's not even out yet, but all the reviewers that have seen it, and their description of it is just like, what are you saying? It's like refreshingly raunchy.
Refreshingly raunchy.
I know.
That's new. That's
would
a
you
new
drink
one.
a Coke that says refreshing? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's just like so headline after headline where it's like applauding how low they've stooped. It is just.
But should there ever be a line that we should draw at creativity?
Man, why you got to do that? This guy over here, he puts that out there, like the same with all of it. We could sit there and talk about that all night for sure.
That'll be another topic. We can, because that one right there would be a good lead discussion into a discussion of creativity, Christianity, and the culture.
Well,
because
last thing I'll say, and then
okay.
We'll
because that is actually is there a line and is there a distinction
there's
between
no
all
line.
of that, or should there be?
For what?
Of creativity or between Christianity and the culture.
The Christianity brand, if you will, to market Jesus or Christianity, as a religion. Because I mean, you see the Jesus fish and all that, and we're like the selling of it and how it's perceived and where are the lines?
You're saying that would be equally offensive, like when Jesus flips the tables and says basically you're trying to make money off of God,
More or less that, or is there? So you got to protect your brand, right? You're talking about reputation earlier. As a Christian, what do we allow to be Christian versus what we don't, right? So if it bears the Christian name, it has to have this kind of content. You follow it all?
Me no.
So if you have a musician, for instance, you can have people that overtly say
right.
scriptural things, Jesus this, or you can have a guy that's a Christian and just sings general moral good stuff, no swear words.
Yeah.
Not talking about
My brain's
sex.
still on raunchy, refreshingly raunchy.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Where's the line at? Is there a balance? Is that okay? How do you get away with that?
Well, my wife said, I thought she was serious, but I guess she was, kind of joking. She said something about, the unsaved world acts like they're unsaved. Her way of saying, are you surprised that there's raunchy
that's how they're going to be.
But at the same time, I'm like, shouldn't we be shocked and horrified and say enough is enough? Even if you weren't a Christian.
But so
shouldn't you be like, if your kid ran around saying and doing these things? I mean, wouldn't
that would
be
be
appalled.
That's unacceptable.
But yet we
there's
laugh
also,
at it, and then it becomes more normal. Right now, it's shocking, so we laugh. Well, things that were shocking and we laugh become so blasé or whatever.
We become desensitized to things.
Well, here last thing, and before we switch over to something different.
There's also a third
Can you let the man say his
branch to
piece?
that. So he went from Christian to one who's just like in the middle. But then there's also Christians out there who have nothing wrong with, you could say, nudity and stuff, and cussing and
I don't
stuff
know
like
about
that. And not only in movies and stuff
Well,
like that, but
on that
everyday life.
along
So
that line,
what do
maybe
you
that's
have
why
there?
you're saying it. So this is from I think an article from Den of Geek, if I'm thinking of the right one. But anyways, not a Christian resource, I don't believe. And it was talking about the child actors and you know, how did they feel about being in a movie with so much sex and so much vulgarity or whatever. And one of the kid actors in it, this is what it says. His last name is Williams, and it says Williams believes that the foul language that all three kids use in Good Boys is reflective. Somebody having a good old time out there. Sounds like a monster. Is reflective of his experience on playgrounds and with friends who are now attending middle school. Williams himself is homeschooled. However, seeing it and playing it are two different things. So basically, he's saying like that. He said, I hear a lot of this vulgarity. I see a lot of it on the playground. I have friends that are in middle school, so I'm not too surprised by it. But I've never partaken in it, is what I gather he's saying. But watch this. It says, however, seeing it and playing it are two different things. Says Williams, I didn't want to do it at first because of all the cursing and stuff, but my mom just told me it was just acting and to pray about it. What kind of, I mean, so basically, hey, sweetie, listen, pray about it. Wink, wink, meaning think about your career here. You're going to make money. You're going to make a name for yourself. This is going to be a big movie.
It's
And
creative.
If you can somehow rationalize this, we can make money. And I get it. I understand it. It's easy to kind of fall into that, like, hey, God will forgive me. But man, oh my gosh, I would hope they look back on that moment, that advice, and think, what did I tell my kid to do?
When it involves your children, it's like it's going to be your call, you know, ultimately. But I think that there is something to be said for vulgarity. I mean, think about the Passion of the Christ. That movie was tremendously awful. Like, it was horrific and it was gory. And
I wanted my kids to see that. It's a rated R movie,
but
because
it was
it's so painful.
But it wasn't
to watch.
vulgar.
Well, it wasn't glorifying the violence.
It wasn't. Yeah, but it's still
It
present.
still used the gore.
But that's what I'm saying.
But it's not the same thing as going out there and using vulgarity and obscenity and saying it's okay as long as, you know, I'm making money or as I'm getting my point across. It's still a difference in what you're using.
I feel like there's a chance to be real with stuff. I mean, as a Christian, my walk is not sunshine and rainbows and like, as an artist, like, you want to put reality, like the reality of what you're doing in your art. And I feel like there's going to be hiccups. And I think like the Christian music scene is like completely, it's whitewashed. And I think that's why it's so boring. And there's so many bands that, like, if I played them right now.
I think it's one thing to say, hey, if I were to make a movie about, say, like a Christian leaving a gang,
right,
there's a place for violence. There's
Absolutely.
a place for, but I think you'd still have to be delicate in how you portray it, so it's not glorified, and knowing who the audience is. But I don't think that Good Boys.
No, absolutely not. And that's what I'm saying.
Case of like, well, hey, they're just trying to be real.
You have to use your brain still. Yeah. But if you look at throughout the Bible, I mean, there's all kind of there's gory, nasty, awful things.
There's stuff that happens in the Bible. I'm like, oh my gracious.
But that's not the story. Like, that's not the end of the story.
But it's not
perpetuating
it's not glorifying
the bigger
it. It's
story.
not recommending it.
Exactly.
Any movie like
and
this,
I also
the
don't know of
message is,
anything.
hey kids, let's laugh it up and do this.
And I don't know of anything that's actually vulgar in the Bible either. As what we consider vulgarity.
Paul happens to say
he doesn't use that word. No,
he says menstrual rags. That's pretty vulgar.
For a point, he's saying how disgusting your good deeds are.
And a menstrual rag is just the same thing. And in the Greek word,
says poop.
is the same thing as if we said menstrual rag.
He said the S word.
But that's for a very. I mean, it's to drive home the point that hey, your good works that you think are so great, they are about as gross as you can get if you think about it.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
There's a point to it.
And that's what I'm saying about the word he chose to use there. He wasn't crossing over a line of vulgarity.
Yeah,
he was actually. It's the same thing we say. Oh, our righteousness is nasty, or going to the step further and saying the actual word. Our righteousness is as a menstrual cloth. That's exactly what he said. He didn't use a cuss word or a vulgar term. He
Paul-
used a strong term.
James, you
But
cannot
it's
tell
the
me
same
that Paul
thing.
never cussed in his entire life. Because not
I
every
don't know
word that he
Paul.
ever said was recorded. Exactly.
But see, now you're stepping out of something that is unknowable.
Well, and I think everybody in this room is flawed, right?
Oh,
Is
absolutely.
less than perfect. And even as a Christian, in my best moments, I'm still flawed. And I wouldn't want a hidden camera to pick up everything I'm doing and saying, right? Because I wouldn't have to, I wouldn't want to have to explain it or whatever. But once you take it out to the public sphere and you celebrate it, it's like, these pride parades.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second. It's one thing to say, I'm homosexual and, I don't want to be persecuted. Okay, listen, as a Christian, I can understand, hey, I love you all with the love of Christ. I don't want to see anybody murdered. I don't want to see anybody, put into slavery. I don't want to see anybody, whatever, But I'm not going to go out there and celebrate it. I'm not going to go out there and push it on people. But that's what these movies are doing. That's what these songs are doing. That's what these, video games are. I'm like, when you're playing a video game where it's like, hey, I can run over a prostitute and, kill some cops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you may not be actually doing it, but you're promoting an
You
idea
are doing
or
it digitally.
philosophy. Yeah. And we want to stay away from like what Paul warned us in Romans when it said that although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do those very things, but also approve of those who practice them. So you may not do them, but as long as you're out there approving of them, you're just as guilty. So we want to have that fine line. There's a balance that you got to.
And I don't want. I mean, like I said, I'm far from perfect, but praise God, there are things that I can clearly see. I can benchmark and say there are things that I used to find enjoyable that I don't enjoy anymore. There are movies that I would watch. There are rated R movies that I remember thinking at the time were like, ha ha ha, so funny, so wonderful. If I were to watch them now, I'd be like, I just cringe.
But that's discernment and conviction, right? So there's good art that is R-rated, it has all the bumps and bruises, and that's my point. I'm not saying that you need to go out and watch Sausage Party, the animated movie about sexual acts or whatever, right? Like that, you can tell.
Well, and that was referenced in that video
Exactly.
where the kids are saying,
'Cause Seth Rogen, right?
I watched that movie, and he's like, kids, you shouldn't be, or whatever. I don't know.
But you got Hacksaw Ridge, right? That movie is gory, but the story is so great, and it parallels a lot
I've
of the
never
stories
heard
in
of
the
that.
Bible.
I don't know.
Is that the one about the Seventh-day Adventist who goes up there on?
He goes up there and refuses to carry a weapon, and
Yes.
he saves a bunch of people.
One perfect illustration is that, because that uses the gore and the horror of war, but it isn't vulgar. It doesn't cross
But it's
into
still
the line of the obscene.
My point is, it's still life, and if
Oh,
you,
yeah, absolutely.
if you fake the funk, it's not real.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have to
And
fake it by not doing vulgar and obscene things.
You don't
Yeah,
have to-
I think there's a line between you're celebrating it and you're commenting on it.
Yeah,
Like,
but
if
and you
you're-
can display gory, horrifying scenes.
There might be
if
equal
ones
amounts
are
of
realistic.
blood in a movie Saw, the Saw movies, as say that was in Saving Private Ryan, but one is
glorifying the
clearly,
violence.
I mean, I would just call
Yeah.
it demonic. I haven't
yeah.
seen the movie, but I've heard enough about it. I mean, you're. I've even had students that'll say, "Oh, Mr. Contos, it's not." Oh, I just said my name. It's not. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's funny. I'm like, because I'll ask him. I'll even say.
Look, you can keep talking.
I know now. You know who it is. I know. Yeah, we got him. Where the students will laugh it off and say, "Oh," because I'll say, "Aren't you scared by that movie? That horror movie?" "Oh no, I think it's kind of funny. I know it's make believe." I'm like, I'd rather you tell me that it scared you to death than to say it's funny.
And a lot of those movies, they don't scare me. They just they disturb me. They I don't know. They give me a feeling of grotesqueness.
It should.
And it's because it's using violence in a pleasurable way, and it shouldn't be done that way. Just to incite something out of somebody. When Saving Private Ryan, The Patriot,
Right.
Movies that are displaying things that are real.
Braveheart,
I love the movie Braveheart.
Heathen.
Or certainly like,
But they're showing
the Passion of the Christ,
yes.
like you had mentioned. I mean, that's that's for a point. I want to be brokenhearted.
They're using you to show you what happened,
You should be
and to
horrified
bring
that
in that
Jesus
same
died on the
experience
cross.
that those people really went through, and that is something that's applaudable. Well, that's good. Those subjects we can probably pick up in something else.
We could-
Because those are awesome. Those are some deep subjects, and they need to be talked about. That stuff does need to be either debated or discussed. So, which we have done before.
We touched
to
on
some
it before,
degree.
but having a fresh set of eyes on it, Jeff,
Absolutely.
is awesome.
But right now we're going to be moving on to Proverbs chapter 16.
Are you? What?
Yeah,
I can't believe it.
Where are we picking up at? Verse.
Verse 10.
verse 10, and we'll try to make it through this chapter. Since we have some who like things eat. How do you say it last time?
What? Pardon me?
How did you say you like having things cut evenly or whatever?
Yeah, well, it's nice to have it like wrapped up so we're not in the middle of a chapter hanging by some odd verse.
Like 9.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, verse 10. Jeff, you want to start us off?
I do. All right, verse 10, and I've got the NIV.
Oh, of course.
Hey,
he
that's
does.
what I have.
NIV says, this is Proverbs 16, verse 10. The lips of a king speak as an oracle, and his mouth does not betray justice. I'm going to be honest, a lot of these, I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. What does it mean? So that's when I switch over to the low level stuff, and I'm like, okay, let me do that.
The low level?
I mean,
What do you
like-
consider low level?
The message. The message says, a good leader motivates, doesn't mislead, doesn't exploit. So when you say it like that, all right, that makes sense. Now, is that accurate? Is that true to the original intent of the author?
Well, I mean, I think that a king is appointed by God himself, right? He's in control of who's leading what nations and peoples. And if the king is following the will of God, then he won't betray justice, right? Is that the idea? I'm looking at James like he knows.
Well, he shouldn't. But you also have to step back and think of if this is also written to people who understood because they were under a king. And the biggest way to inspire hope is to give them a sense of a future and, a destination that is attainable. And that's what oracles did. They foretold things and gave them hope, especially when they went into battle. And a king, as long as they gave them a message, as long as they went up there with a plan and an idea, the people would be able to rally behind them. And I think that's what it's speaking of.
Well, it's not even like you can't go against the orders of a king once that once his commandments are out. You're going to do what he's.
Yeah.
What he says.
Think of when what was Esther when how she got in her place is because Vashti refused to listen to the king, and it was like, well,
Was that the one where he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go back on that. But here's what I can do. I can say you can defend yourself. Oh, gee, thanks.
And then you can hang Haman from the gallows.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm glad he hung Haman from the gallows, but yeah, it's like he didn't want to go back on it, but then it's like once, especially in Persian law, once it was recorded down, it was unchangeable. But yeah, but I guess you could also relate that to us too. When it says the lips of a king speak as an oracle, his mouth should not betray justice is the message of Christ. We're following him. I mean,
Yes.
where's that?
It's breezy.
It's hot, man.
It is hot, but the fan is blowing up. The lips of a king speak as an oracle. Sometimes we're just like those people. We're searching for something to rally behind, and that message of Jesus brings hope, which is also one reason why we should be going out there and presenting it every which way we can without betraying the confidence and branching into vulgarity.
Using art.
We should use art, but
To glorify God.
yeah, as long as
I
it's
mean,
glorifying.
I've said that for years. When it's being creative is a reflection of who God is if you do it right.
Right. Well,
Verse 11.
verse 11, honest scales and balances belong to the Lord. All the weights in the bag are of his making.
Translated, God cares about honesty in the workplace. Your business is his business.
That is all wrapped up nice and neat. We don't even need to go any further.
Well, you know what I mean? Like when...
Was that the message again?
Yeah, that's the message.
Oh, I thought it was you, Joe.
No, wouldn't that be nice? No. God cares about honesty in the workplace. Your business is his business. So in the... let me see if I take it back to the NIV. honest scales and balances belong to the Lord. All the weights in the bag are of His making. I mean, am I wrong, or am I just like low IQ? I need a little bit of,
Well,
the Cliff's notes.
The square of like doing
that's
square
always
business is like that comes from God, right? Like that's all basically from Him. Like
Yeah.
He is justice. He is square. He wants everything.
Absolutely. And the idea, especially when it comes to like economics and government and all this kind of stuff, you hear a lot of people rallying against and wishing that stuff would be done away with. And, if we stop and think about it, even right here,
What?
this stuff isn't man-made creations of how we perform things. We've just taken them over and perverted them. The way people interact with one another, the way we are supposed to, like, socially and economically, that was instituted by God. And the way we see them operating now isn't to the fullness of how they should be, but it doesn't mean that those basic things shouldn't be there.
Right.
It's that we should try to get back to how God wanted them instituted in the first place.
Well, like a second ago, you guys were saying, like, well, there's this, one perspective that, art should reflect life. And so maybe there's room for vulgar things or whatever. Well, I mean, there's probably people that are saying, well, hey, this is business, It's cutthroat. It's capitalism. Well, this is saying, nah, keep it honest,
Yep.
I don't think God is saying you can't earn a wage, but you got to do it honestly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What would be glorifying to Him?
Sell CBD oil.
Christian book distributors, oil.
They do sell oil.
I bet
holy
they like anointing
oil.
oil.
Yeah.
That's not what they were hoping for.
That's what I'm saying. Give me your credit card number. I'll send you some oil.
That's right.
Put it on your aches and pains.
Verse 12, kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established through righteousness. And I guess we'll just go ahead and ring through verse 15, because I think we could probably sum them up together. Kings take pleasure in honest lips. They value a man who speaks the truth. A king's wrath is a messenger of death, but a wise man will appease it. When a king's face brightens, it means life. His favor is like a rain cloud in spring.
I was thinking of Trump when I was reading these, because I know that's what a lot of people are, right now he's kind of like the poster boy for, an angry leader, and some would say, well, no, that's good. He's passionate and he's honest and he doesn't have a filter, and that's what we need right now is no filter. Well, I mean, does this verse seem to allow that? Like, could you be is there
An egotistical leader?
Well, can you have both of those? Can you have a strong leader that's not willing to compromise, but at the same time, this is verse 14, an intemperate leader wreaks havoc in lives. You're smart to stay clear, something like that. Some of the stuff that you see mentioned about, and not just Trump, but some of these quote unquote great leaders like Steve Jobs. CEO of Apple, he was kind of notorious for having a short temper, but he's also applauded for being one of the most brilliant business minds the world's ever seen. So what do you think? Is there room in these verses for
both?
For being rude or for being
It's justice, right?
I think when we spoke of Trump, he's sort of, in a way, he's what is needed for certain things to be done. But I think it's sad that so many people are right with the bluntness and the way he does it. I think you can have a leader, or there should be a leader who can do the right things economically and everything else without having to cross the lines that he does. And when it says a king's wrath is a messenger of death, wrath isn't always a negative. I mean, it's always expressed negatively, but I mean, it's not always rudeness and
right. There
like
can
on
be
the wrong side.
like I
of
said
good.
earlier, Jesus flipping the table.
Exactly.
God's got a holy wrath.
If those money changers bowed the knee right there and pleaded and say, "Hey, we're sorry for doing this. Let's take this out and set up out there and start performing the exchanges the way they should have," I think Jesus would have stopped.
Well, and when my wife, I guess, jokingly said, do you expect the unsaved world to act like they're saved?
I like that.
But then, and I think she's somewhat joking, but should we just shrug it off like that people are aborting their babies by the millions? That's the world. Shouldn't we be? I mean, I'm not recommending that we do anything violent, but man, if I and I'm not out there protesting. I'm not out there, praying with these people or saying, hey, I'll open my home to your baby if you just please promise not to abort it. But man, shouldn't we be a lot more passionate, energetic?
Passion comes from that's what art is. So we won't get into that.
Well, that's what produces art, is passion. Yeah, but I think it's a mix of both. That saying, I think if you take it as speaking to your action as somebody responding, it shouldn't be applied that way. It should be the way that we address and treat the person who is doing those wrong actions. Should we expect the unsaved world to act anything other than unsaved? No, you shouldn't. But then what do we expect ourselves to do? Well, we should rise up and stand for justice and righteousness, but it can't be the point that we demand and create laws that make them do things that are, and more, I guess, in a lack of better wording, unnatural to them.
Well, I wouldn't say you must worship my God because, that's, there's a lot of reasons that's wrong. But I think that I would say it's appropriate to say, okay, I get it. You don't know the God that I know. If you truly believe that we're here by accident, there's really no true right or wrong, which, that's a crazy logical rabbit hole to go down.
What makes that statement right?
You can rationalize rape and murder at that point. But, all right, so I get it. They see nothing wrong with just horribly vulgar things. But I still think that we need to do something to say, but you can't do that. It's like with kids. Okay, sweetie, I get it. You're not here yet. You're not an adult. You don't have the wisdom that I have. So I'm going to step in and say, no, you can't. And you'll appreciate it later. And I think we're at that point with society now in America where it's like we should say, listen, I get it. You are so far down that, hey, let's, whatever we want, whatever makes us happy, let's do it, even if it's disgusting and vulgar. We're losing people. I mean, like at some point, shame on us. Because we're just rolling over playing dead, or worse, we're watching those movies, we're listening to that music, we're partaking of it, and just kind of laughing along and saying, God's in the business of forgiving, so he's okay with it.
Yeah, or they're okay. One thing I think we've lost sight of is when our Constitution was first crafted, we really regarded the identity of our conscience. It wasn't just about us as an individual, it was us as a society as well. We had to look out for each other. It may be okay for you to do something, and you should have the right and freedom to do it as long as it doesn't infringe upon this other person's conscience. Mm-hmm. And if we can't do that in the marketplace, you're going to have to not do the extreme things that you want so that the conscience of the others, especially as the majority, because there's still a large majority who aren't all right with that. It's just what's being pushed. And if we do that, the freedom of our conscience should be what is safeguarded there. But we're losing sight of a lot of those Christian principles that we are founded upon.
What does this have to do with 13, 14, 15?
Kings and queens and wraths and. But
I was thinking about, so you're talking about Trump, for instance, and 13 there. I mean, someone high up in authority needs to hear the truth or the righteousness, right? Not just someone who's going to tell them yes all the time.
Yeah.
So the problem is that's great and fine and good, but who wants to tell somebody like Trump that? Or the king in general. The king is not good. Depending if the king's a wise man, he's going to appreciate that. He'll appreciate you if there's righteousness and truth, right, and he's following God's will. But nobody wants to tell somebody, hey man, you're messing up. Right. How do you think Trump is going to react to that?
Well, I think that he has a lot of good godly counselors behind him, and Pence, the vice president, and a lot of the cabinet members tell him, hey, you shouldn't. Hey, that was kind of wrong.
But with the turnover that you see, you get the feeling that hey, we'll keep you on board as long as you
got to fall in.
Yes, man.
You got to fall. Like David Platt, right? They were kind of thinking about having him a prayer over their prayer breakfast, but then they knew that he wasn't gonna he was gonna stick.
Yeah, he was gonna stick to his guns.
And I think that is pretty telling.
And we actually see that too many times, I think, in just business in general, we have too many people who just want to be yes men and climb the ladder and not stand up enough for your convictions as you get there, because sometimes you're not going to get to the point where everybody else is going to get because you do that.
There's wisdom and there's timing in it too, right? You got to have some tact. Like you can't wait for the president to deliver a speech and be like, "You're wrong, you bonehead."
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. It's just.
That's why most counsel should be done behind closed doors.
But you're right too. And even in Proverbs earlier, we were talking about how many counselors makes a wise leader.
Yeah.
Or a wise decision even in life. So.
And we see how the negative actually affected Israel with Rehoboam. When he was asked about, what do you think about this? He went to the older counselors, and they told him this advice. And then he went to his peers.
If you ask enough people, you'll get the answer you're looking for.
Then he went to his peers, and they told him what he wanted to hear. And he went up going with them and ended up splitting the kingdom.
Well, you can go on the internet and find what you want to hear, too.
That's the thing. Yeah, if you really want, to do something, you can find somebody to give you, the green light.
What are you grinning about over there?
Nothing.
I'm sending him pictures.
No.
Me? Oh.
When we first started, I started talking about how I left the airport and, I called them flies, but they're airplanes that were flying, and it was making Caleb nervous. And we were telling him it wouldn't be too bad. They only have to make it's like 2 planes on the way there and 2 planes on the way back, like two layovers. But they said that's where that ding was. They're still at the airport. The flight had been delayed, and they're waiting in the never-moving line.
If I never fly again,
Oh my goodness,
I'll be so grateful to God.
My wife is probably like panicked. She may not be, but
it's just part of it's all part of the experience.
I'm not thrilled about flying.
But
are we going to do chunks again?
16.
Or you want to do one at a time, or?
Well, I thought those went together, so. So we'll do verse 16. How about that? You want to read it?
How much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver? How much better?
Well, I mean, and this goes back to my little article about the mom saying, just pray about it. And I wasn't there. I don't know the woman's heart, but
Are you saying she gave him turds instead of silver?
You know what I'm saying? Just about
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wisdom,
she wasn't giving him gold
money.
and silver.
The only reason you would say yes to that, if somebody went up to her and said, "Hey, listen, this doesn't pay. Nobody's going to see it.
It's about the gold, right? The money.
Can you? Would you be okay if your kid said all this stuff and I mean, just watch? I'm talking to you adults. Watch the trailer and tell me if it doesn't give you a sick feeling. I mean, come on. If your kid did this, the only reason that you would say yes to this, or to even like imply a yes by saying, "Oh, I just pray about it," is because there's money attached. There's fame attached.
There's some financial security.
So this whole if she truly said, "All right, let me be biblically honest here. Let me think. What would God say if Jesus was right here?" And Jesus says, well, let me quote the Bible for you, ma'am. Proverbs 16:16. Get wisdom. It's worth more than money. Choose insight over income every time. Yeah. I mean, is there any long-term benefit spiritually by being in this movie? No. It's just money. But, and I will admit before, people who wagging a finger at me, have I ever done something
Jeff,
just for the money? I do stuff for the money all the time.
I go to work every day just for the money.
What's that Wu-Tang song?
I don't know.
That's why I go to work every day. It's just for the money.
Wait, is it cash rolls everything around me? Cream, get the money, dollar bill, y'all. You never heard that guy? I mean, come on.
I've heard dollar bill.
Just what you've said.
You guys grew up the same time I did. Even in passing a car with a window.
I was watching MacGyver.
And he said that?
No. I mean, while you were singing to your Wu-Tang, I'm like trying to figure out how to make a bomb with chewing gum.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
is wisdom more helpful than gold?
I would say it is more helpful to more aspects of life than gold.
And do you think we as Christians walk that out?
I just read an article, and I'm sure you've seen these things before, these studies, but it was talking about they interviewed people with $1 million to their name, like in assets.
Yeah.
And they were asking about their satisfaction, their confidence, and their ability to take them. Like the grand, the big message here was that a surprising majority of people just they're still worried about money,
Yeah,
and
still.
they are literally millionaires. And they spin it to a financial thing, talking about, well, these people aren't planning properly, and they don't have the assurance that money will be there tomorrow. The point is that you're never going to have enough money.
Yeah.
And even when you have that quote unquote enough money, what's that going to? I mentioned Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs died of a disease that no amount of money could have stopped.
Yep, that's how it works.
Elvis Presley.
Well,
I'm sure he had plenty of money, plenty of power. Michael Jackson.
still making plenty of money.
With wisdom, though, comes satisfaction, and with wisdom also comes wealth. Right? You're gonna make wise decisions.
Not necessarily wealth.
Business,
or financial wealth.
Right,
I
but
mean, you could
you're
be
not going to
poor and
get. It's
very
not
wise.
opulence, right? Like you're not going to get fat off of this or that because you have so much, but you're going to be satisfied, and that's wealthy.
Contentment.
That's to me, I would consider that to be very wealthy.
A verse that sort of mirrors that is verse 22. Understanding is a fountain of life to those who have it, but folly brings punishment to fools.
Somebody, one of my contractors today said to me, he was talking to his boy, and he said, I'm going to tell you what my grandpa always told me, a hard head makes a tender behind. I thought that was awesome. I've never heard that before.
I've heard that. That's don't
Nothing to follow up with that.
Don't let your mouth cash a check, or don't let your mouth write a check that you tell can't
This
cash.
translation says, while fools sweat it out the hard way. True intelligence is a spring of fresh water, while fools sweat it out the hard way.
Yep.
I mean,
Fresh.
but you see people do that. Especially as a parent, we shake our heads sometimes like, what are you doing? It doesn't have to be this hard. Why are you doing this?
But there's lessons that have to be learned. Like you can tell your kid something, and I mean, you depending on which one. Like each of my boys is different, and they need different instructions or a different word even.
But even as adults, don't we sometimes do things the hard way?
Oh, absolutely.
That maybe
because of stubbornness, we want to
drives us so far down the road. And I don't mean just like something insignificant or small, but I mean like just. You might make a life choice that takes 10 years to correct.
Well, what's funny is all the cliche things that the dumb sayings that you've heard throughout your life are really true. Don't worry, just be happy, all these dumb things, but they're true because there's not really much to worry about, especially when you have freedom in Christ.
There's a lot of sayings, though, that are garbage. I was administering the SAT or the ACT, I guess it was, last Saturday at Triple S High School, and they have this big poster in the hallway. It says, never doubt yourself. And I'm like, well, that's just that warm, fuzzy garbage that means nothing. I think we'd all be a whole lot better off if we had some self-doubt and say, should I do this? Is this the right thing to do? No. Instead, don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, we got to build that confidence.
Run full speed ahead into that brick wall. Destroy your life. Just,
I'm talking about more like the cliche, like the Christian bumper stickers that you see that are overtly Christian, right?
Oh, there's a lot of sticky
but they're true. Like they're all true, and they're so simple, and that like you go through your life and you can apply them and figure out where you should have applied them.
Well, and the 10 Commandments are just kind of like, duh.
Right.
Oh, I'm not supposed to kill anybody. Well, gee, thanks for that, bit of wisdom, But then we do it.
The simple things stick in our minds better. It's sort of easier to recall.
Never say two words when one will do. That's my philosophy.
Yep. Mm-hmm. My father-in-law would say, yep. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right. Well.
You could have just said one.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
One thing I liked about my little researching into this is that
I thought you were gonna say My Little Pony, but anyways,
My Little Pony. No, I was looking at it.
Never mind.
What is it?
Rainbow Sparkles.
And because we can, my brain just go like all of our brains just go off. Pew pew pew. There is My Little Pony. There is grown men that follow My Little Pony. They're called bronies. Did you hear about this?
I've heard of them.
I think you've told me about it before.
Hardcore. Like every episode, Twinkle Dust and whatever their name. Like they know their origins. No, I'm not. I don't think I've ever even seen it.
My Little Brony.
If we flip over these posters, are we going to find My Little Pony?
As soon as you guys leave, I hit a button under the table and everything goes. Yeah. See this? Yeah. I just didn't need to say that.
Squirrel.
Go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
I was looking at it. In the NIV, there
Which
are.
one?
This one that I'm reading in front of me. We have the word life 5 different times starting in verse 15. But only 2 of them come from the same word.
You,
I thought-
you lost me.
Like
Okay.
different words for
In
what we
Hebrew.
would translate as life.
Yes, like verse
Like
15.
Eskimos have 22 words for snow, or something like that. Different types of snow.
Oh wow.
Are any of them vulgar?
Probably. Check out the snow on that.
Well,
on
actually,
that snowman.
in that regards, the word itself would not be vulgar. It's the way they use it.
It's how you say it.
Oh, so you can cuss, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't say that. No, you're
But
going to take this down the wrong.
You are confusing me. Go ahead before we get
Verse
somewhere
15,
we don't want to be.
when it says that when a king's face brightens, it means life. And that word is hay, which means life, living, lifetime, or a state of living, which, in other words, is saying that you're not going to lose your life if the king is happy. Because, Esther, when she walked into the king's thing, into the room, she could have been killed on the spot. And that's what that word is speaking of. And then verse 17, it says that the highway of the upright avoids evil. He who guards his way guards his life. But that word is not just life. It is. They use the word nephesh there. And if that brings anything to mind, it should bring in, that's exactly what we were called in the creation account. When God formed man from the dust of the earth and breathed life into the spirit into his body, he became a living nephesh. The nephesh is the soul. It's really, it's tied the closest to what we would in the Greek for psyche, or I guess in modern times we pronounce it psyche, but for the mind, but it would be psyche. And it's in the Hebrew mindset, it was both the inner man or the state of man that you can't see, and the physical side that you can see, both cooperating together, just like the dirt and the spirit working together. So that's what he was guarding there. And then, and understanding is the fountain of life to those who have it, but folly brings punishment to fools. He uses the plural form of the same one that's found in verse 15. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because it was a way of living, or the ability to be alive. So the understanding is a fountain of life to those who have it. So it's an understanding of the way life as a whole works. And the closest thing we would get to that in the New Testament is when Christ said that he is Zoe. When we say spiritual
You mean Zeo?
life, Zoe.
Nefesh?
So he's speaking of the life, not just in a physical sense, but life in a whole. Life as in all of its elements together. And oftentimes we get wrapped up in this world and we're just pursuing physical gain when we don't take in consideration every aspect of life that we should be, especially the spiritual side of things. I just thought it was an interesting thing.
Very interesting.
And the other one was in verse 31.
Are we going to 31 already?
Well, I'm just showing you the words life. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained by a righteous life. Oof. But that is a different word for life there than the other two. This one is derek, which is way or a path. Or you could say Tao.
Is the
Zeo?
Is the message being, and I don't mean the message translation, but of that last verse, the idea being like, you live with wisdom, you're going to live, you're going to see some old age, as opposed to, dying early from something stupid.
As things progress as they should, the older you get, the longer you should be walking with the Lord, the longer you should be applying wisdom and understanding.
But that's not a promise that you're going to have a crown of gray either.
Well, yeah, none of these, I guess, are promises.
No, they're
just
not promises, but
words to
I
live
think
by.
I like that it is attained through righteousness, right?
is gray in a beard the same thing as a crown?
No, that's never mind.
If you're wearing your beard, all ghetto style, like the cool kids.
And only if you're standing on your head. Okay, anyhow.
But I like that the practical follow-up statement that it's gained through righteousness. It's not just old age, right?
Yeah.
Just because you see an old person.
Well, that's what it's gained through righteousness is what it says. Yeah, because it's gained through the path that you take.
Aging in righteousness.
Not just necessarily that you're getting old. Because there's a lot of older people that you start talking to them, and what they're telling you is like, oh my gracious, how is this world not plummeted faster than it already has? But
yeah, so since you did 31. I'm going to go straight to 32 and say it's okay to gamble. All right, we're done.
32. What to
Let's call
say?
it a wrap.
Moderation is better than muscle. Self-control better than political power. That's the message. How's that? What's that? Gambling? What?
Do what?
No,
You said that's something.
33, I'm sorry.
Oh, 33. Make your
see,
motions and cast your votes,
man.
but God has the final say.
yep. So how's gambling okay for that?
It says to go ahead and cast the lot, right? That's gambling, as far as I know.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's gambling.
doesn't
on the
matter.
money.
They're
It's all-
saying cast your vote.
It's cast a lot. They're not putting money on it.
Make your motions and cast your votes, but God. That's just a lot of these are kind of like reminiscent of others, or almost like word for word in some cases. Wait, didn't we read that like 5 verses ago? So I take that to mean, at least in this translation, make your motions and cast your votes, but God has the final say. You can make all the plans you want. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
God's got the final say on this.
With that verse right there, that the best thing that I believe that we have to experience to bring that into light, not only a lot of stuff we do, is our elections. You can vote and go out there and vote what you want, and I think you should. I don't think anybody has the right or privilege to say, "Oh, I'm not going to vote." You
James,
should get out there and
you
vote.
are jurisprudence. You make a difference.
Every vote counts, but
I needed the message version of you. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
But it's like, if you wanted Trump in there or not, God has a plan for the reason why he was put in there, and he was only put in there because God allowed it. So then I think that's what that verse is speaking of, is like we can vote any which way we want to. But the way it turns out is going to be the way God wants it to, and eventually, in the end, everything is going to bring him glory because it's all going to culminate when he returns.
And to those that are,
Rapture.
that would hear something like that, and they'd be like, "Are you saying that Donald Trump is God's man?" Well, no. I think
No.
The idea is that God can
He can use any man.
work anything to His glory. Even it could not just Trump. I mean, like think of something that we all agree is a bad thing, like Hitler. I mean, there's some good that's come out of that.
We actually got most of our intelligence and electronic advances because of the information we gathered from a lot of their research.
I'll give you a good example of here's an article I read. It was talking about there was a meeting of the children of these are the kids whose parents died in the attack in 9/11, and this girl met this guy at one of these meetings. They fall in love. They have a family. There is a very meaningful, nugget of joy that came out of something horrible, And so I think God can do. I mean, He can work miraculous, wonderful things out of anything.
Do you think he can work through the movie Soul?
I don't know what movie.
Maybe
Saw.
by grossing somebody out to the point where they go to
Saw.
somebody in tears and they have to be
Okay, all right,
went to a
that's
counselor, and
never
that
mind.
counselor might lead them to Christ.
Well, He can make you so. I mean,
Your therapist? Wait, you don't believe in therapy? What are you talking about? Get out of here! Get out of here with that mess. No, I get that. I feel like everybody groans when they don't get their champion president that they want. It's even like, it reminds me of Pharaoh and how God gave him over to himself. Like he's going to give us over to ourselves. And that
Feels
how
like it's
that
already
looks.
happening.
Yeah, well,
But
exactly.
just like we're told in Scripture, God works all things out for the good of those who love Him and called according to His purpose.
well, I was saying it last night. My wife and I are just seeing headline after headline that just makes us cringe. And I'm like, well, I have to remind myself that, America is not my final home. I'm not on
We're
this
just
planet
passing
for the
through.
glory of America. I love America. God bless America. I'm thrilled that I'm an American. But, I don't want to cling to the wrong thing,
Absolutely.
And so to watch it kind of crumble around, I mean, it really, truly feels like it's just coming to an end. And then maybe everybody thinks this in their 40s, they're like, oh, what's the world coming to? But boy, it sure feels like
It
it's.
sure does.
Well, you gotta think too, perspective of how. Like I remember my parents talking about it's hell in a handbasket. It's going down the tube so quick. Is it our age and that we can see the things now, or is it the frog in the boiling water?
I can't help but think that it's like it's accelerating things that just never would have happened
It's
10,
like the
20,
frog in
30 years
boiling
ago.
water.
But then I'm kind of torn. Like is this, maybe this is just this. Obviously, this is something that God knew about. Obviously, this is just a stepping stone. And man, if 100 years from now, this is what it takes, the complete dissolving of America as we know it to get us that much closer to Christ's return, those labor pains,
Yeah.
Well, and as things continue to get worse and worse, we can only have the best parts of society, but for so long, it's going to have to get worse sometime or another.
Every civilization crumbles at some point.
Yep. And usually
Where's
all
Rome
crumbles
now?
are the same. Rome? Some say it's in the shadows.
That's deep. Is that from Wu-Tang?
Everything. But before we go, I want to see what y'all's opinion was on this verse.
That's like barbecue
Verse
sauce.
26. The laborer's
spicy.
appetite works for him. His hunger drives him on.
Which verse is this, please?
Verse 26.
26, huh?
Of what?
Proverbs.
Chapter 16. In the book of Proverbs. Isaiah 16.
I think that it's an argument against communal living or
What?
excessive taxation. It doesn't say he labors for his government.
Hunger makes you work harder.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean that's good. I mean, because look at these people that are so, they have everything. These, look at the spoiled rich kids that, their daddy is the CEO of some company, and all they've ever known is, mansions and Ferraris and, oh, Daddy, it's my 12th birthday party. Can we have, Prince come and sing, or I don't know. Can we have Wu-Tang Gang come and sing?
Prince died. Wu-Tang Gang.
I'm talking like it's in the past. I don't mean like, can we do a seance and have Prince? Hey, if you have enough money.
Wow. There's probably a movie about that somewhere.
Tupac is still alive. He's in the shadows.
I have to close this episode out with a rap song now. I'm sorry, guys.
It sounds like that's the way it's going.
Lay down something fresh for us.
Oh, I will. But yeah, I like that. I think the laborer part always makes your brain focus on the blue collar aspect, but there is certainly like white collar people that work hard can be just working hard, right?
Well, you appreciate what you have. I mean,
that's wisdom
with your
right there.
sweat.
Being satisfied with what God's blessed you with, and working for it.
Yeah.
You
Another.
don't take anything for granted.
Yeah, well, I think those are good points.
Is that what you're looking for? You're looking
Yeah,
at me
absolutely.
like I
No, I'm
said
just
the
going to bring up
wrongest thing in the
something
world.
else. That the word translated as appetite is nefesh. It's
That's
soul.
life.
Is that the same word?
You just said, wait a second. What'd you do there?
You did that on purpose. This is a trap.
No, but it's the word translated. It says the laborer's appetite. The word appetite is actually translating the word nefesh, which is the word soul, or what we could say when it says up there, he who guards his way guards his life. That word for soul, that's what it's saying. That's what works for him. And the word hunger is actually translating the word pay, which is mouth.
Mouth.
And it's usually translated for speech, command, or testimony. How does that change what you were thinking? Or does it? It may not. It actually wouldn't change a thing that I've heard. But it actually...
So say you plug in your vocabulary.
The laborer's soul works for him. His mouth drives him on. Or his speech drives him on. And a lot
his mouth, and so they're taking it mouth as in like his mouth, food,
for hunger. Because they translated nefesh as appetite.
So you're thinking that it may not be...
I think it could speak to something maybe more than just hunger or just a drive in worldly things, but I said, I think that to me that threw it for a little bit of a pause from how I normally took that verse. So
I was thinking that's way overthinking it.
but also, oftentimes think like the more you want to desire something, the more you try to encourage yourself and others. And that's your speech, your commands, or your testimony. But the way, if you look at your life and you see where you're going, looking back at things, you see God working in them and how He's moving. That testimony itself encourages you and also drives you on, and helps you to further pursue what our life is supposed to be all about. And I don't know, but I do think if you don't have it all, you work twice as hard as the person who does have it, and you do value it more.
Absolutely.
I agree with all that. But I just thought it was interesting.
That is interesting.
But I think that for the biggest part, there's a couple verses we didn't touch on, but I think for the biggest part, that was chapter 16. I think we
did
are
it,
getting
boys.
there. Getting there. Chapter 17, boys, next time. And,
oh my goodness, here we go again.
Yep.
How long is this going to take?
There's 31, so we're halfway through.
Yep. Woohoo!
So chapter 17 will be on for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And we'll have an article discussion.
Yeah, we'll have an article discussion and all that kind of stuff too. But chapter 17 with you guys next time we get together. Since we didn't do it to begin with, Josh, would you want to pray and just close this one out with prayer and just pray that, with all the stuff that we've been talking about, the most important thing that all of us we're desiring for ourselves and also you who might be listening is that you strengthen your faith in your walk with the Lord, and that can only get done if you are in the Word yourself. And that's what the name of the podcast is supposed to be, promoting the Word lover. To get that relationship as deep as you can with Jesus Christ. That's the only thing that's going to bring true happiness and sustain you when things get tough.
Wow, man, how am I supposed to pray after all that?
And the only thing that's going to give you meaning when things aren't tough.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
when you lose yourself or your meaning.
This world makes no sense. That's why you see people that have everything, quote unquote, everything, they commit suicide.
Yep.
Because
it's meaningless.
Nothing works.
All right.
With that.
Oh, wait, can I pray?
Yeah.
All right. Father, we thank you that we're able to gather here together with the freedom to discuss your word, and that we can be anchored to your word, Lord, and we stand on that foundation as this world seemingly crumbles around us, Lord. We pray that you give us strength and endurance and the ability and opportunity to see where we can just help and love and encourage others, Lord. Lord, I pray that your hand be on this podcast and it can go out and touch hearts, Lord, and penetrate skulls and just change lives, Lord. And I know that that's an ambitious thing to say, but I pray that it's done for your glory, not for ours. And I just pray that you just reign, Lord. And I say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And with that, I'm your host, James Beasley, here with
Josh.
That was a question mark. And Jeff, with an exclamation mark
today.
That's right. And you've been listening to the Word Lover Podcast. God bless.
Yeah, so undeserving, and yet we worship, giving all the praise, just humble servants, till sweat and tears, till no more fears, singing the glory of the gospel out to every ear. This life that reside in my tongue you took for your name to become a tool for your will to be done is crazy. See me as a son when I should be shunned, worth nothing, Lord, I'm just dust, but you covered me by your blood, You covered me with grace, and a love so unconditional, it's got me on my face every day, Be the praise of the saints, goes my praise every day,